Hello there, guys, and welcome to class. This is a class that is part of the high school and ninth high school. We are working on the biology subject and week number 7. Let's start with our presentation, and here you have our title, Topic 2.02, Properties of Water, and our ending mind. Identifies that water is a compound common to living things by recognizing the importance of hydrogen bonding to the properties of water, by explaining why many compounds dissolve water so that he or she can complete the module assessment correctly. Okay, and here you have a summary of the activities for today, which are to read topic 2.01 and complete the worksheet that you find right at the end of the topic, and then make a graphic organizer about the properties of water. Okay, those are the activities you will have to complete. Okay, let's start. And well, before we go ahead and give you a more detailed explanation about today's topic, I will ask you to go and watch the video found in page number 1 of topic 2.01 as an introduction to the topic. That will help you out to have some background knowledge and start understanding several things from what we are going to learn about today. So go ahead, go to Agilex, watch the video, and when you are ready, please come back. All right, so welcome back. And now let's jump into our topic. So first of all, let me tell you that water is essential for all living things and all living beings on Earth. And if it wasn't because of water, then we wouldn't actually have life on our planet. An example of that, what happens if a plant doesn't have access to water? Well, it will pretty much die and it will dry out, right? And what will happen if animals in a jungle don't have access to water? Well, pretty much what happens to plants. They are going to die. So water is essential. It is in every single one of the living cells of living beings around our planet. And the water is a key component of cell structures and processes that are necessary for the transfer of matter and energy between life and its surroundings. So no matter what happens, if a living being doesn't have access to water, it will just die sooner or later. Okay, and since we are talking a little bit about the properties of water, we also need to take a look at the type of bonds that we can find around cells. So in general, I can tell you that there are 2 types of bonds, ionic bonds and covalent bonds. So like in the first example, you can notice that there are 2 atoms that are being attracted to one another. So it happens because of the, let's say, the charges that both particles have. So they're going to start attracting each other, but what is going to happen is that at the end they are not going to touch. And at some point they are going to start sharing electrons, just like the ones that you can see right over here. So one of the electrons from the first atom is sort of being shared with the second one. And that is why they are going to be attracted to each other. But they are not directly touching each other, But on the other hand, we have covalent bonds. And in this case, they are actually sharing electrons. Both of the particles are sharing, and that's what keeps them attached to one another. And in fact, they are assembled to each other. In this case, this is the structure that we will actually get to see in water atoms. So what is the chemical formula for water? It's H2O, which means that they are going to have 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 of oxygen. And they are going to be assembled together thanks to the covalent bonds. That's one of the properties from water atoms. All right, let's continue. And here we have some more properties of water. First of all, we have cohesion. And it is how much water is going to attract itself. Let's suppose that you are going to pour some water on a table. So what is going to happen to the water bodies or the water portions that you have around? You are going to notice that little by little, they are going to attract to each other, and you're going to have like several divisions or several parts of water right there. So that happens because water has this property, which is cohesion. And when it finds more water around it, then it is going to start attracting it. Then we can also go through addition, which is how much water attracts other components. So how much water is going to attract oil, for example, how much water is going to attract soap, or many more. That is one of the properties of water. We can continue with surface tension, and it is how hard it is to go through a body of water. I don't know if you have seen, but there are some insects that actually manage to walk right at the top of water. They can actually get to do this because of the surface tensions that it has. So probably for us humans, since we are very big beings, let's say, it is very easy for us to go through water. But for those animals that are very little, it is not that easy. That's why they can even walk through water. Then we have capillary action, which is the capacity it has to flow through a container or through a tube, to be more specific. So let's suppose that you're going to pour some water inside a tube. You are going to notice that it is going to be pretty easy for it to go through it. But what do you think will happen if you start adding a lot of sugar or a lot of honey to the water? Then it is going to become way harder for it to go through that tube or container. Because the capillary action properties are being changed in this portion of water that we are studying. Then we can also say that water expands when frozen. So there are many other components that actually don't expand, but it's totally the opposite. They're going to get way more compacted. But in water, it's a little bit different. It expands when frozen. And it is a universal solvent, meaning that if you add a lot of materials inside and you mix it, then water is going to mix with those materials. It also happens because of the covalent bonds that we were analyzing, since it has like these specific charges that make it very easy for it to attract other components. All right, let's continue. And right here we have something that is very important, and that is also related to the properties of water. Well, in this case, we're going to have a pH scale. It basically means how many hydrogen atoms a substance is going to contain. And depending on the amount of hydrogen atoms that it will have, it can be either an acid or an alkaline substance. Well, if it's right in the middle, then it will have a neutral pH, let's say. So it wouldn't be either or both, right? But right over here, you can notice that we can find water right in the middle with a neutral pH of 7. Which means that this substance is harmless. That's why we can drink it every single day, and it even has a lot of benefits to our body. But what happens if we start going to different locations around this table? You're going to notice that if you go to the left, you are going to have acids. And if you go to the right, you are going to have alkalines. So, for example, right here, milk, it is going to contain like less hydrogen atoms, let's say, which is going to make it a little bit acid. Well, coffee is going to be a little bit more acid than milk, and so on and so forth. We can continue with wine, vinegar, lemon. Then the acids that our stomach generates will have a very low amount of hydrogen atoms. And lastly, we have HCl, which is a type of acid. Okay, so some of these acids are harmful depending on where we use them and what they are in contact with. And the same thing will happen if we go to the other side. If we start going to the side of the alkalines, as you can notice, blood is going to be more alkaline than water. We can continue with baking soda, milk of magnesia, ammonia, soap, bleach, and also drain cleaner. And well, each one of these things have some very specific functions, like disinfection especially. But what happens is that if they get in contact with our skin or with other organs, they can be harmful. And well, that's something else that we can take into consideration. Water is right in the middle of the pH scale because it has a neutral pH. And if we go to the left, they are acids, and if we go to the right, they are alkalines. Okay, and let's continue. And also the last property of water that we are going to talk about is a specific heat. And when we mentioned that water has a specific heat, is that when we are measuring its temperature in degrees Celsius, you are going to find out that it is going to start freezing at 0 degrees Celsius, and it will start evaporating at 100 degrees Celsius. So this is pretty helpful to compare water to other substances and as well their freezing and boiling temperature. Okay, guys, so that's about it for today's lesson. Thank you all for coming, and I'll see you in the live session in a couple of minutes. Goodbye. Take care.